Ulcerative colitis motivation. How do you keep going during the hard times, during the flares, when you feel at your lowest? My name's Jacob and I've been living with ulcerative colitis for over 10 years now. And over that time with inflammatory bowel disease, I've found ways and methods to allow me to thrive while suffering with all of the problems that come with IBD. So, ulcerative colitis motivation, and I've split it up into 3 points: mindset, action, and retreat. And it's not necessarily in this order, they're kind of interwoven, but these things have helped me get through the lows and the hard times of ulcerative colitis flares. And I know how tough it can be. When that flare is really kicking in, it can feel hopeless and like there's nothing going your way. You can feel stuck, like you're going to be like this forever, and like things are just never going to get better. Sometimes it can take a lot of time to find the right medication that's going to help you heal. And during those times, yes, it feels like you've hit rock bottom. And these are the ways I found to help get me through it and ultimately come out the other side. So let's get into it. First of all, I used retreat quite a lot. This is a good first step. If you're feeling overwhelmed by everything, retreat. And what do I mean by that? Well, for me, it was video games. Let's write this here. Video games. This is retreat. So when I say retreat, it's doing things that make you feel like you can forget about what's going on. That might be going into YouTube videos. That might be going for a walk. That might be, in my case, a lot of the time, I worked out and I went to the gym. I lifted weights because it helps me feel like a normal person again. Anything that can sort of take your mind off of that flare and remind you that you are still you and you are still a capable person, or helps you mask that feeling and those emotions. I know that's not what you always want to be doing, but it is good to retreat and just forget and de-stress, because you don't want to spend all of your time in a worried, stressful state. And that brings us over to also mindset. So, what am I going to be saying when I talk about mindset? Well, the first thing is, I know it's hard and remaining positive can be a challenge, but try and think about the positives. You might be getting help from a healthcare professional. You might already have a diagnosis. You're already in a better position than a lot of other people. You might live in a country where your healthcare is free, like the NHS in the UK. That's a huge deal to celebrate, and you're already in a better position than a lot of people. Or maybe you do live in a place where you have to pay for your medical bills, but ultimately you end up getting the treatment that you need. There's always a positive silver lining to everything. For me, it was learning about nutrition and learning ways to help my body. This kind of came later after the fact, but when I look back retrospectively, I learned a lot during these hard times. So another way you can use your mindset is just know that what you're going through is a learning experience. There's huge opportunities to learn here. I'll write EXP to keep it short. Learning experience. The future you will be much better off having gone through this learning experience and learning the new ways that you can look after yourself and keep yourself healthy. And not letting yourself get drowned in sorrow. Sorrow. Let's do a little red arrow. Don't let yourself get drowned in sorrow. When you start feeling sorrow, you start feeling really sorry for yourself, sad, hopeless, lost. It's time to use the other options like retreat. Get yourself out of that, ignore it for a bit, or do some action. Taking action can also help alleviate you feeling hopeless, lost, and sorrowful. What sort of action can you take? Well, these can be linked into your methods of retreat, and that might be doing exercise, That might be preparing a meal for tomorrow. That could be coming up with a meal plan. That could be researching. You might want to research foods that help during the flare. You might want to continue, which you should be doing already, creating a food log. Write down how you feel after eating foods. Take things back to the basics if you can. Eat simply, see how it affects you. Note what happens when you eat a new food. Taking action can help combat that feeling of hopelessness. And this also goes back to mindset. Just knowing that there is something that you can do can help you feel like you're in control. Because ultimately, a lack of control is what seeps in that sorrow, that lost feeling, that anxiety, that hopelessness. It's a lack of control. When you have no control, you feel terrible. And ulcerative colitis can strip you of your control, but there are things that are still very much in your control. And this is everything that you can do. You can use retreat. This is an action in a sense. You can take explicit action, writing lists, getting good sleep. So you can allocate, I'm going to write sleep on here, but you can allocate yourself more time for sleep. You can allocate yourself time for rest. And rest can actually also take the form of retreat. This is a sort of an active rest. You're resting from the worries and the burden that's on your mind because of the flare. You're able to forget about your problems for just a little bit and do something positive. Another thing that really helps your mindset is community. Because you can be damn sure in this world, no matter what is going on with you, there's someone in a worse position than you. And you can go onto any sort of community forum about ulcerative colitis and find people who are really struggling, who are facing surgeries, who are facing cancers. And you can say to yourself, it's not as bad as I thought it was. I'm just in this sort of state. Or you can find someone in the same health state as you and learn from them. And this helps you with an action. Learn. When you join the community, you're able to learn from people who are one step ahead of you, experiencing the same thing as you, or they might have tips on how to sleep, they might have tips on exercising. There's so much to be learned from a community, and it can really help. And I lent on community very hard when I was in hospital with ulcerative colitis. Community helped me get through that. And if I didn't have access to Discord or the internet in general, I think I'd be in a much worse time. I didn't end up having surgery, but I looked up everything about that surgery. I talked to people in that situation who have already had the surgery. They say how much their lives have improved because of the surgery. And in some cases, it makes them feel like they don't even have an inflammatory bowel disease anymore. I came to terms with potential outcomes. Come to terms with it. By extension, accept it. Now, full disclosure, during this time, I was actually speaking to a therapist online whilst I was in hospital. The whole time I was going through the worst flare of my life, I was speaking to a therapist. And the main thing I learned from that was to accept the situation that you're in. Stop trying to fight it. When I would sit there and need to run to the bathroom and bleed, and it looked gruesome, the bowl was full of blood, it felt like I'd been abused because the convulsions going through me, I just accepted it for what it is. I just breathed through it. And then afterwards, I either did some retreat action or I did an action, an explicit action. I leant very hard on playing video games in particular because you can sit in another world and forget your own problems for a little bit. But for the most part, I learned to accept it. And this doesn't happen overnight. You don't just suddenly wake up and think, oh, everything's okay. I accept everything. No, it's not like that at all. It happens over time. It's a hard thing to grasp, but over time you can come to terms with it and accept it. And coming to terms with it, I also, like I said, I came to terms with the potential outcomes. Maybe I will have surgery. Maybe in the future I will have bowel cancer. These are potential outcomes that could happen to any of us. Death is inevitable to all of us at some point, and it's good to try and come to terms with it, because the whole time that you don't, you're sort of living a lie, and you're going to be feeling more anxious, more sorrow, more lost, and more out of control because you haven't accepted it. There's an internal conflict. There's this terrible thing happening to you physically, and you don't believe it mentally. You think, how can this happen to me? Oh, life is so unfair. Well, the truth is, life is unfair. So accept it. The sooner you accept that life is unfair, the sooner you can move on and do something else. You can get over it. Accept it. It is what it is. That's a phrase I like to say all the time. When something bad happens, take a deep breath. It is what it is. This is just the situation I'm in. We can't help the situations we're in. Well, sometimes we can, but sometimes you can't. It is what it is. Now, something in particular that helped me get through extensive periods of insomnia was actually going online, watching YouTube videos about Hell Week in the army. Hell Week in the army. Well, during Hell Week in the army, they oftentimes don't sleep or have a maximum of 4 hours sleep over a week and do intense physical exercise. And I was sat there in my comfortable bedroom, lying there, trying to sleep, very angry at myself because I can't sleep. And then when I actually watch these videos about people in Hell Week, I think, well, life's not that bad, is it? I'm just comfortable in my own bed. They're out there doing intense army physical exercise, and I'm just here lying in bed, and I can't sleep. I've got nothing to worry about. And that actually helped me. That helped me accept it and come to terms with the fact that the steroids I was on was keeping me up all night. There's much worse situations I could be in. I'm comfortable at home. I'm not out there in a battlefield. I'm in the battlefield of my own mind. And my mind is tricking me. Mindset, again, I say again, I haven't said it yet. Don't believe everything you think. Your mind lies to you. Don't believe all your thoughts. I spelt believe wrong, but hey ho. Don't believe. Anyway, don't believe all your thoughts. Your brain is lying to you. Your mind might be thinking, oh my God, we're going to die. Oh my God, there's so much blood loss going on. Oh my God, this is the end of the world. No, it's not. Your brain is lying to you. It's telling you things because anxiety is a warning. It's an internal message from your brain to worry about potential outcomes. And your brain's naturally going to think about all the worst outcomes because it wants the best for you. But it doesn't know what's going to happen. Your brain can't tell the future. It's just trying to tell you what could happen. Anything could happen. A meteor could hit this house right now. The bomb could go off in London and completely evaporate me. My brain worries about it. I can't do anything about it. It might not even happen. It might happen. And that's why the anxiety's there. Because it might happen. I might be outside and a lion might strike me down. Lions don't even live around here. But my brain worries about it because anxiety is a message, a warning of potential problems. And when you're suffering with ulcerative colitis, there's a lot of potential problems, especially if you Google it. Then all those potential problems are now in your head. Now you're worrying about them. Now you know about those potential outcomes. You're going to get anxiety about them. Don't trust all your thoughts. Your thoughts betray you. Let that sink in. Your thoughts betray you. Anxiety is merely a message. And that's why it's so important to step out of yourself and look at your way of thinking. How have you been talking to yourself lately? Have you been letting your anxious thoughts dictate your every move? Perhaps. That happened to me on a daily basis. When I was flaring, I'd sit on the toilet, blood would come out, and my brain would say, "You're dying of blood loss right now. Have some cortisol and panic." And I started panicking. Don't believe all your thoughts. This is one of the most important things on here, actually. I've crossed it out. Don't believe all your thoughts. Anxiety is ruling you. This is where this links into come to terms with it and accept it. It's getting messy here now. Because if you allow anxiety to rule your life, you won't ever come to terms with how you're feeling, and you won't ever just accept it and move on, and ultimately take action. Coming to terms with it can be aided by taking action. If you're taking action against it, it quells that part of your mind that's worrying constantly and bringing you anxiety. Because you're now doing something, you're taking action, you're fighting against those potential outcomes, and your brain is sort of silenced because it knows that these potential outcomes aren't going to be such a problem anymore. But if I've learned anything in life, is that once you stop worrying about one thing, you start immediately worrying about something completely different. So there will always be something to be anxious about, and that's why you can't believe your brain. It's always going to be worrying no matter what you do. So the best thing you can do that I've found is take action. Write it down. Write it down. If you ever get anxiety, and I'm sure you do, I do all the time, I just write it down in a notepad. It might be on my phone or notes, or it might be physically, I actually write it down. Or it might be down here in a video. I'll just write it down. I'll talk about it. Writing it down can really help you stop worrying about it and help you with all of this. It can help you take control. It can help you take action. You can retreat from it for a bit, and then you can have new thoughts on how you can take action. This is so interlinked, but when you do retreat from it, say you've gone for a quiet walk, this spurs on action. Because during that quiet time, you're able to actually process what's going on, have some thoughts that aren't so worrying, and actually come up with new ways and ideas to solve your problems. And that's why all of this is interlinked. And if you work on one, you'll naturally work on the others as they just follow on from each other. If you start working on your mindset, you start learning from your experience, you try and remain positive, you're taking control, you start taking action, you'll go out for a walk, you'll have new ideas on how to take action. That enhances your positive mindset, makes you feel more in control, reduces your anxiety, which when you next go for a walk, you have even more thoughts on how to take action, and it becomes a continual loop of positivity, and it's going to help you get through it. And before you know it, you'll be working on all this, and by that time your flare will have subsided, because flares don't last forever. If you're taking the right steps towards healthy living, you will get through this, and your flare will heal. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.